All eyes are on the Constitutional Court after Parliament passed a bill to impeach President Park Geun-hye. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn steps in as acting president. What are the most pressing issues ahead? Stay tuned for details. Welcome to News Inside. I'm An Jang-hyun. Let's welcome back our panelists. Professor Shin Sang-hyuk from Kyung University Graduate School of International Studies and Dr. Bong Young-sik from Yonsei University Institute for North Korean Studies. The final decision on impeaching President Park Geun-hye now lies with the Constitutional Court. Will it uphold or overturn the impeachment vote? Here's a look at where things stand.
With Koreans nationwide watching a key vote to impeach President Park Geun-hye, the National Assembly gave the green light, passing the second bill of its kind in the 68 history of constitutional rule in the country.
총 투표수 299표 중 가 234표.
Immediately after the motion passed, President Park held a meeting with cabinet members, offering an apology and also asking officials to work with Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn to reduce the power vacuum in state affairs.
저의 부덕과 불찰로 이렇게 큰 국가적 혼란을 겪게 되어 국민 여러분께 진심으로 송구스럽다는 말씀을 드립니다.
Now attention nationwide has shifted to the Constitutional Court away from the presidential office and National Assembly. In order to speed up the hearing process, the court held a meeting with all justices in attendance to discuss the schedule and related procedures. The court says it plans to start reviewing case documents as soon as the president submits her statements against the impeachment motion. The first step to impeach President Park has been set into motion, but there's still a long road ahead until the final decision is made. We'll look at some of the pending issues.
The impeachment bill sailed through Parliament, and now it's up to the Constitutional Court to issue a final ruling. What do you think will happen?
It's extremely difficult to answer your question, but I want to remind you the differences between the first impeachment of Roh Moo-hyun in 2004 and this impeachment.
탄핵 결정에 필요한 재판관의 정족수에 이르지 못하였으므로 이를 기각하기로 하여 주문과 같이 결정한다. 주문, 이 사건 심판 청구를 기각한다.
First of all, about this scandal, there has been, huge public sentiment against the President Park Geun-hye and her government. And second one is that the reasons, they brought against the President Park Geun-hye is totally different from the reason against the President Roh Moo-hyun. So I think we have to wait, but it would be extremely difficult decision for the Constitutional Court.
Dr. Bong, what do you think?
I agree with Professor Shin's forecast, judging from the fact that in the impeachment voting at the National Assembly, more members of the ruling party, Saenuri Party members, voted for passing the impeachment bill than the number of the members who opposed it. That means that even if impeachment bill may be overturned in the Constitutional Court, the governability of the President Park will be extremely damaged and limited.
The key will be whether the president is deemed to have violated the Constitution. What will be some decisive factors in this?
It shouldn't be just a simple violation of the Constitution and law. According to the Constitutional Court's ruling on the case of President Roh Moo-hyun in 2004, in order for the president to be impeached, equivalent to basic dismissal from the position, it should constitute grave and serious breaches of the Constitution and law. And the impeachment bill submitted at the National Assembly counts for 9 major charges in serious breaches of the Constitution and law. And it is up to the Constitutional Court, the judges, to deliberate and make a decision on them.
Yes, there were 18 reasons exactly that were cited in this impeachment bill. Will proving just one of those allegations be enough to unseat the president?
Well, it could be, but we have to consider the responses from the Constitutional Court. After the impeachment bill was passed at the the Parliament, well, the Constitutional Court, the spokesman announced that the Constitutional Court will review all 18 reasons for the impeachment, which means when we just look at the final decision of the Constitutional Court, one or two reasons can be the direct reasons for the impeachment, the decision. But at the moment, I think that will be the part of the all comprehensive considerations needed for the final decision of the Constitutional Court.
Seems they want to ensure procedural
Right.
fairness. One thing we might take into consideration is the makeup of the court justices in terms of their political inclinations as well as their terms.
Well, definitely the Constitutional Court's deliberations are complicated by impending retirements of two judges. Well, the Constitutional Court has the 9 judges, and among these, 2 judges are scheduled to be retired. First one is the head of the Constitutional Court. He was actually recommended by the president. He is scheduled to be retired in January. And another, the judge who is scheduled to be retired in the end of the March, she was recommended by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So according to the Constitution, out of 9 judges to make a final decision about the impeachment of the President Park Geun-hye, at least 6 judges should say yes.
Right.
But if they cannot make a final decision until the end of March, which means that there will be only 7 judges. So out of 7, 6 judges, if they say yes, a president will be impeached. But from the opposition parties' perspectives, I think it would be very difficult for them to see the impeachment of President Park Geun-hye, because out of 7, to expect the 6 persons, agree for the impeachment of President Park Geun-hye, well, you cannot say based on very simple calculation, but anyway, emotionally, the opposition party would be against such a kind of situation. That means that acting president, Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn, could make a point the replacing 2 judges of the Constitutional Court or not. That will be one of the big issues in the politics.
But there is a gray area regarding your final point. One is that whether the Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn, who is virtually the acting president under the current situation, will have the constitutional authority to recommend and appoint new judges in the Constitutional Court to replace 2 retiring judges. And second point is that if so, then whether there is a sufficient chance between the ruling party and opposition parties to come up with the consensus to appoint 2 replacing judges in a short period of time, so that the process of the deliberation on the impeachment case will continue without too much disruption. Both cases are very difficult to predict.
So,
Road less traveled, and nobody really imagined that these constitutional arrangements would become necessary.
well, there are many more questions and issues surrounding the Constitutional Court's impeachment ruling. We talked to a few legal experts about them.
박 대통령이 세월호 참사 당시에 이를 제대로 대응하지 못해서 국민의 생명권을 보호할 의무를 유기했다. 이것이 이제 그 탄핵 사유라는 것인데, 대통령의 행위는 통치 행위이기 때문에 이런 직무 행위에까지 결국 법적 책임을 묻는 것보다는 통상적으로는 정치적 행위로 봐서 그 다음 선거에서 국민들이 투표로서 심판을 합니다. 이제 그런 점에서 본다면 이 직무유기는 헌법과 법률에 위반된 중대한 위반으로서의 탄핵 사유로 보기에는 다소 부족해 보이는 것은 또 사실이라고 보여집니다. 그래서 제3자 뇌물 제공죄가 탄핵 사유로는 아주 강력하기 때문에 그 입증이 굉장히 중요한 것이죠.
The protecting the people's constitutional rights is the duty of the president, the basic and fundamental duty of the president, and the impeachment process is not the criminal one. So the Constitutional Court does not have to stick to the standard of the criminal procedures rule of this decision making. For impeachment, the president should be violating the Constitution and law. That's the simple rule of law. So I think it looks like the president violated the Constitution to protect the people.
헌법재판관들의 경우에는 일반 법관들하고 달리 그 민심의 동향도 무시할 수 없다고 보여집니다. 소수 의견을 낸 사람이 누군지를 결국은 밝히게 되는 것은 결국 탄핵 심판의 인용이나 기각에 어느 정도는 영향을 미칠 걸로 봅니다. 그러나 대체적으로 헌법재판관들이 수십 년 동안 사실관계를 판단하고 법을 적용해온 법관들이기 때문에 사실 판단을 먼저 집중할 걸로 봅니다.
Many background facts of both proceedings are intertwined. Evidence proven in the criminal case can provide a good reason to impeach the president. But the Constitutional Court decision will not bound by the result of criminal case because, as said before, the purpose of the impeachment is not to punish a criminal, but a removal from the office. The standard of scrutiny for impeachment, so, is not as strict as the criminal decision, so-called, beyond the reasonable doubt.
So we'll have to keep an eye on how things unfold, but in the meantime, are there certain variables that could have an impact on the final ruling?
Definitely, I like to highlight two variables. One is the result of the investigation that will be made by the Special Prosecutor's Office for the next 2 months. If, especially the bribery charges against Ms. Choi Soon-sil, which might implicate President Park Geun-hye, is going to be included in the investigation report by the special prosecutor, then it'll be a political bomb. And second variable is the further investigation of the Mr. Woo Byung-woo, who used to be the chief staff in the Blue House for Civil Affairs, and the former chief of staff, Mr. Kim Gi-chun. The prosecutor's office have not begun any formal investigation against the two staff members, but if it's going to take place and the result will be made in directions that would reveal more evidence about President Park Geun-hye's potential serious breaches of the Constitution and law, then the Constitutional Court's ruling will be geared toward the opinion that impeachment of the president is inevitable. So everything is kind of interlocked with each other at this stage.
Some opposition lawmakers and members of the public are still calling on the president to step down before the court makes its ruling. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, about this one, the president, whenever she has a chance, opportunity, she made it very clear. She wants to, maintain the presidency until the final decision made by the Constitutional Court. We can easily understand why the opposition parties prefer to see the immediate resignation of the president, because that is very beneficial, more advantageous for the opposition party, particularly the Minju Party, People's Party, to win at the next presidential election, because they have very strong, one of the strongest candidates, Mr. Moon Jae-in. But on the part of the ruling party, definitely it cannot be an acceptable offer from the opposition party, because that means that they will give up, they will surrender at the next presidential election.
And we also have to take into account the personal reasons for President Park Geun-hye to hold on to the idea of staying in the office as long as the impeachment result will be made by the Constitutional Court. First, I believe that she really wants to restore and protect her honor as a president. If you read back the 3 apologies she has made, then there's a repeated emphasis and pleas to the nation that she only meant well.
저로서는 좀 더 꼼꼼하게 챙겨보고자 하는 순수한 마음으로 한 일인데 국가 경제와 국민의 삶에 도움이 될 것이라는 바람에서 추진된 일이었는데 저로서는 국가를 위한 공적인 사업이라고 믿고 추진했던 일들이었고
She really values the intention as opposed to the consequences. And the second point is that there is no safety net available to President Park Geun-hye if she agrees to step down early.
As in immunity from
As
prosecution.
immunity or pardon. The Prime Minister is kind of an acting president, but he is not really entitled with all the presidential powers. So there is an element of fear and anxiety that is quite understandable, at least at personal levels, for President Park Geun-hye.
That is certainly one of the practical reasons why she cannot step down immediately. But this is not the personal affairs. This is directly affecting national interest and the future of the Korea. So I think we have to wait and see. But I think personally, the President Park Geun-hye should have to consider more and then make a final decision which can be acceptable.
On the political front, there have been rapid developments after the impeachment bill was passed. Here's the latest.
From the moment President Park Geun-hye's impeachment motion was delivered to the presidential office, Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn assumed the role of acting president.
국민들의 소리 속으로 들어가고 또 우리 국회와 긴밀한 협의를 통해서 국정이 안정될 수 있도록 그런 노력을 하겠습니다.
At the top of his list was national security, visiting the Joint Chiefs of Staff to be briefed on the latest. Next, he ordered Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho to stay in office and work to overcome current economic difficulties instead of pushing for a transition in leadership. The Prime Minister also called for measures to contain the rapidly spreading bird flu virus, while expressing his desire to roll out more support policies for the vulnerable in society. Political parties also tried to narrow their differences and work together to minimize the power vacuum. But it will likely be an uphill battle as public distrust has surged due to the Choi Soon-sil scandal. Polls show that all 3 major political parties have seen their ratings fall, while the ruling Saenuri Party, especially seeing numbers drop to nearly a third. Contrary to this, those who said they have no party to support jumped by nearly double. One by one, major issues that had been cast aside due to the influence peddling scandal are beginning to resurface. In order to regain public trust and support, what are the top priorities that need to be addressed by the government and political parties?
So Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn is now serving as acting president. It's only been about a week, but already there's controversy as to how much power he should or shouldn't wield. How do you think he's doing so far?
I think he's acting on belief that first things first. We are dealing with a national crisis and the absence of presidential leadership. So somebody has to fill in the void of the governance. So to some people, his effort to try to eradicate these sources of concerns for the nation may be seen as expression of too much enthusiasm, potentially initial expression of his own personal ambition as the next political leader. But we have to wait and see, because there are some reasons why his active role play so far for the first week after the impeachment bill was passed at the National Assembly be seen in a rather positive light. we are in a different context from the impeachment case of 2004 when Prime Minister Kyo-ahn was filling in for President Hyun. The widespread and overriding assumption was that the impeachment decision would be made without too much duration in the Constitutional Court. And as we know that the impeachment deal was concluded in 63 days. But the overriding assumption in this case is that it will be extremely prolonged and convoluted process, even after the ball was passed from the National Assembly to the Constitutional Court. So he had to have the longer time horizon in terms of maintaining governance.
And one of the assertive steps he's taken so far that has caused a bit of controversy was his decision to keep the current finance minister, presumably to deal with the economy, which is another top priority that we need to address.
Right. Well, after the impeachment motion was passed at the National Assembly, economists really worry about the financial market. But unlike our concerns, the financial market was okay. I mean, the stock prices went up, and then exchange rate was, Korean won against USA dollar became stronger. So on a short-term basis, we do not worry about some negative impact from the impeachment. But the real concern we have is about the external circumstances, particularly United States. President-elect Mr. Trump announced that USA will take protectionistic trade policies. And on the top of this kind of the unfavorable trading circumstances cultivated by the United States, where slowdown of Chinese economy is also regarded as one of the other major negative factors on the Korean economy. So considering those kind of negative external circumstances against Korean economy, the next question we have to find an answer is how are we going to deal with this kind of situation? Well, when you look at the situation, we have two heads. The government, Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn, acting president, should have to make a decision about the economy leading system, who is in charge of the Korean economy. It should be made very urgently, otherwise there will be some confusion, which is not very good on the Korean economy. And based on such a kind of a very clear leadership, the Korean government should have to contact with the USA government, new government, and or keep on negotiating about the trade relations with Chinese government. I think it's very urgent. If we miss the time, definitely the burden which the Korean economy should bear is going to be increasing very fast. Well, the hearings at the National Assembly, the images of the Korean big conglomerates have been ruined in some sense. So many experts are really worried about the images of the Korean major chaebols, conglomerates, could be one of the direct threats against Korean economy. So it is certainly to change those kind of negative images of the Korean big chaebols. The role of the Korean government seems to be very important.
There are also two contentious issues that have resurfaced, one being the state-issued history textbooks and the other, the THAAD deployment decision. Is there a possibility that these issues will be reviewed from square one?
Until very recently, before the impeachment bill was passed at the National Assembly, well, the Minister of Education, he said that there must be some flexibility in using this textbook. But after the impeachment, the minister changed his statements. It can be another conflict. Without enough discussions, without the enough persuasion, it will be endless, the conflicts, which can be one of the very negative factors on the settlement, the social security.
What about THAAD deployment?
Well, it's a controversial issue, as it always has been, and the controversy is likely to continue, if not escalate, because of the void of presidential authority in this moment. According to the schedule announced by the Ministry of National Defense, the THAAD deployment will be made according to the schedule and likely to be completed sometime next summer. We are looking at July of 2017. Unfortunately, that timeline is almost completely overlapped with the timeline of the impeachment deliberation in the Constitutional Court and the activity of the special prosecutor. So the danger is this national security issue to be dangerously politicized. Some people argue that stopping the procedure of the deployment of THAAD will be equivalent to losing credibility of South Korea as a trustworthy ally of the United States. And if Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn, for some reasons, cancel or postpone the plan, then there will be tantamount to, going overboard as a Prime Minister temporarily filling in for President. On the other hand, other people argues that it is basically irrational and politically unacceptable for the government to proceed extremely unpopular and controversial issues, especially in times of national crisis. So even if from the standpoint of maintaining basic political order and social cohesion, we have to avoid making any hasty decisions, including the deployment of THAAD. And the problem is that these opposing views are evenly divided. So the wild card will be how North Korea will be behaving in the next 6 months or so. If there will be more verifiable, clearer signs that North Korean missile and nuclear threats are something that are extremely imminent and gathering, then deployment of THAAD, even though the THAAD itself cannot protect the entire sovereign territory of South Korea, that decision will gain increased public support. But if not, then oppositions to the deployment plan will be escalated.
Isn't it likely that North Korea will wait, though, for the Trump administration to take over?
Right,
That'll be another few months.
Right. Ms. Choi, who is in charge of the North American Bureau in the Foreign Ministry of North Korea, made a very interesting statement in the unofficial meeting with some non-official participants in the secret meeting in Malaysia and Europe, that we will wait until February next year for two reasons. One, we are as shell-shocked as you are about the election of Mr. Donald Trump. So we're not really prepared to deal with the Trump administration. So we need time. Second, we will not prematurely abandon the opportunity for meaningful dialogue and negotiations with the new government of the United States by engaging in any provocative actions until the U.S. forces in South Korea and Korean Army will begin the regular annual military exercise that is scheduled in February next year. So there is a window of opportunity for both sides to engage in dialogue. And until then, I don't think North Korean government will be rushing into any provocations or local military actions.
And the THAAD clock will be ticking. So
Right,
there's a whole lot
too.
of waiting and
Right.
seeing here. Splintering among political parties is another problem. The ruling party is virtually broken up in two between the pro-Park faction and the non-pro-Park faction, which is making it difficult to form this consultative body consisting of both the ruling and opposition parties as well as the government.
Well, when you look at the situations of the Saenuri party, I think the situation is very serious. I think there is no available options to them except for the breaking off between the pro-Park and non-pro-Park fractions. Because during the impeachment motion was sailing through the parliament, definitely they passed the line, acceptable line between the two political factions. And then they have also the practical reasons why they have to keep on fighting. That means that the Saenuri party has about the 57 billion won asset. This is really huge amount of money, isn't it? So the pro-Park fraction, which is right now taking the leadership of the party, they want to keep this leadership until the last minute. That means, considering the previous experiences, the political friction which has the leadership of the political party, they keep the flag of the party, while the others should have to quit their political party. Based on this kind of experience, definitely non-pro-Park friction, they are going to quit, leave the Henry party. I think it's a matter of time. But another problem which pro-Park political faction should bear is that when they keep the party flag, but they will face serious criticism from the public.
Sure.
So it's going to be very, very cruel and very cold for them, cold winter for them. So definitely they have to find a way to survive. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for them to maintain their political stance. But because of those kind of internal difficulties, happening inside the political, Henry party, well, consultative body participating, the government, opposition party, and the ruling party could be, forming of those kind of consultative body seems to be very, very difficult.
Yes, and one other issue in the spotlight now is the presidential race. It looks like there might be an early election after all. How do you see it unfolding?
The most noticeable phenomenon is the rise of outsider political leaders, such as the mayor of Seongnam City, Mr. Lee Jae-myung. Conservative Party has no better alternative to UN Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon.
But we're not even sure that Mr. Pan will choose
right,
to go
definitely.
to the
now
ruling party.
That's why Mr. Ban Ki-moon suddenly has the upper hand over the ruling Saenuri party. So it is up to him how to decide or which party he is going to decide to join. If he ever decides to run for presidency, we have a similar case. Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-ahn, who was initially riding on the very high level of public support in the initial phase of presidential election, eventually opted out of the race. So you cannot guarantee that current popularity rating for Mr. Ban Ki-moon, which makes him one of the top two candidates, alongside with the opposition party candidate, Mr. Moon Jae-in, will continue or not.
Right.
So it is up to what Mr. Ban Ki-moon will do for the next couple of weeks as his term as Secretary General at the United Nations is going to end. And people will complain that with all these years that we have been suffering to restore and protect the basic ideals and systems of liberal democracy, where has he been? Of course, you said last time that he has been busy working as Secretary General of the United Nations. But United Nations is not a country like South Korea. So South Korean people are going to elect their president, not the next United Nations Secretary General. So that's kind of a liability that Mr. Ban Ki-moon has to overcome if he ever decides to actually run for presidency.
Yeah.
The very key variable is the Constitutional Court's decision on the impeachment bill and the outcome of the special prosecutor's investigation. If the special prosecutor's investigation reveals additional evidence about the corruption, the bribery, and the abuse of power between the presidential office and the corporations and other confidants, then they will fuel the fire. And what if the Constitutional Court, for whatever reason, overturned the impeachment bill? Then it'll be wild, wild west. And people will take the street and just express their total distrust in the existing political institutions and systems. Then the outside candidate, like Mayor Lee Jae-myung, who does not have the image of the establishment, will be the popular choice for angry public.
In the meantime, the National Assembly Speaker has brought up the issue of constitutional revision again. Is now the time?
It is not the time, I personally think. But I guess he expressed his long-standing conviction that the Constitution since 1987 has failed to solve the problem related to so-called imperial presidency. So much power is concentrated in the hands of the president, and that has been the mother of all the political evils that we have suffered since then for the past almost 40 years. But Mr. Moon Jae-in, one of the forerunners in the upcoming president election, spoke otherwise, that he basically said that, quote, the Constitution is not guilty of all the problems that we have been going through. And changing the basic structure of power in the government will not solve all the contradictions and problems in the society. But at the same time, the opposition party members also seem to agree with the Speaker of the House, Mr. Jung Se-kyun, that it is an opportune time for constitutional revision because all these scandals would not have become possible had it not been for the too much power in the hands of the president.
What is for sure is this strong disillusionment that people have about politics. So that means politicians have their work cut out. Where do they begin?
That's a very important question, I think. After the impeachment bill was passed at the National Assembly, the power was given to the hand of the lawmakers and the National Assembly. But when you look at what they are doing and what they have done so far, I'm personally really concerned because that they should have to draw a very roadmap on the short-term basis as well as long-term basis. Drawing the roadmap means that they should have to give the people about the way we have to take. Without the destination, how we can decide, how we can choose the way of transportation to go there. So I think the imminent task given to the hands of the lawmakers is to draw the roadmap on the short-term basis as well as long-term basis in cooperation with the government. They have to discuss about how we're going to deal with the current challenges. As we discussed before, many challenges they have. Constitutional reform and the presidential election, and then the economic challenges facing us. All these things can be a kind of some direct threats to the Korea and Korean people who will overcome those kind of challenges. That is the parliaments, the government, and the people.
What do you think, Dr. Hwang? How do politicians win back public support and trust?
It'll be a very tall order. Winning trust takes time and numerous signs of the confirmation. So you have to do what you can do first, which is that the National Assembly should be the part of the solution, not the part of the problem that being dealt with by Korean people. Way that the impeachment bill was decided and passed at the National Assembly was far from satisfactory to the eyes of the South Korean public. So it is not just the Blue House or any other branches of the government that need to restore public trust, but also National Assembly is. So the members of National Assembly should be really humble and careful to avoid any disillusionment that they are given the mandate, unconditional mandate and trust from the South Korean voters. People are watching, and the National Assembly members, with one slight mistake, will be the next target of public anger.
Well, we do have to wrap up our discussion. Any parting thoughts?
Well, I think this is the very crucial moment, not only in Korean politics, but also in the politics. So, as we discussed so far, I think the politicians, the government, and they should work together to show us the way which the Korean people should take. They have to make every effort.
Dr. Hwang.
Well, the interview with the Korean newspaper, the UK ambassador to South Korea reckons that the most shocking news for the UK is the Brexit. And because we were so swamped by our own political scandals and turmoil in recent period, we forgot that other countries also went to one of the biggest challenges in their national histories. United States, there's a shocking result of the presidential election as well. So I guess it is time for challenges and tries for all the countries in the world. And I guess there's a relief and comfort that we can seek that we are not the only country going
We're not
through
the only
this.
ones.
Right.
All right, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us today. That is all for this edition of News Inside. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with more next week.